Pittsburgh Technology Council has been helping our region's tech companies succeed since 1983. The Pittsburgh Technology Council helps its members meet new customers, hire top talent, make headlines, and have a strong voice in government. From startup to multinational, the PTC helps tech companies and advanced manufacturers of all sizes. See how we can help your venture grow at pghtech.org. That's pghtech.org. Compunetics is the leading developer of unified voice, video, and data collaboration and conferencing applications for the service provider, government, and unique workflow applications. The Summit Olympus and Evergreen platforms, driven by their encrypted user interfaces, enable powerful and secure collaboration. Combined with world-class support and innovative professional services, Compunetics delivers the right solution every time. Learn more at compunetics.com. Every company needs to attract and keep talented people. To do it, you need a strong company story told by those who experience it every day, your employees. So invite your people to be your brand voice and let the Kindling Culture Agency gather and ignite your stories to engage and attract your people. Learn how at sparksomething.big.com. That's sparksomething.big.com. This is TechVibe Radio, your front row seat to Pittsburgh's technology and innovation ecosystem. TechVibe is brought to you by Compunetics at compunetics.com, Chorus Call at choruscall.com, Highmark at highmark.com, Huntington Bank at huntington.com, Kindling at thekindlingagency.com, PNC Bank at pnc.com, and Savier at savier.com. Here are your hosts, Audrey Russo and Jonathan Kirsting of the Pittsburgh Technology Council, coming at you from the Huntington Bank Studios. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining me here on TechVibe Radio. Happy Sunday. I hope everything is going well for you so far and you had an awesome weekend. I tell you what, very excited about today's show because I'm going to bring you a bit of a really fun podcast I did with Joe Merilli, who is the founder of PS Solutions. If you don't know PS Solutions, they just do custom software development, app development. They solve really tough problems with technology. And Joe is one of these guys, man. He is just a tech entrepreneur through and through. When Joe did the podcast with me, we just had this great story about his journey in tech. It goes back to him being an aspiring programmer in high school, all the way to founding PS Solutions 15 years ago. And PS Solutions, they're headquartered in Altoona, PA. They have a Pittsburgh office, and they also have an office in Wilmington, North Carolina. And so Joe and PS Solutions, they just have this creative approach to solving company software and technology problems. And Joe envisions a secure future in tech by making sure all development is done here in the US, which I just love. Bring it all onshore. Plus, Joe also talks about some of the company's community-oriented projects that are addressed to first responders and suicide prevention, which is just so cool that he has time to give back and build tech solutions for these types of causes. So I think it'd be so much fun for you to learn more about Joe. We're going to play a big old chunk of his One Mic Stand podcast. And of course, if you want to listen to the entire thing, I encourage you, go to wherever you get your podcasts, look for TechVibe Radio, and underneath there you will find his podcast. Plus, you can just go to our website at pghtech.org. You can find it there as well, too, under our podcast drop-down. So let's get to it. Before we kind of jump in, I mean, obviously, you've got this fantastic background. I mean, you mentioned to me before we hit the record button that you started in IT like right out of high school, which I think is so cool.
I actually went to the Altoona Career and Technology Center when I was in high school.
Okay.
For scientific data processing, it was called.
Wait, scientific data processing?
Yeah. So for 3 years, I did nothing but Fortran, RPG, and COBOL programming.
Oh my!
in high school.
Okay, you're proving your chops right now.
Yeah, right.
I love it.
So that was the beginning, and I was actually one of the 2 top students in the class. Mm-hmm. The other guy went off to college, and he was a basketball player. And actually, I work with him today. He has a business in Altoona also, a technology business, and we work together on some things. But I got a job right out of high school at a company called Midstate Bank. Midstate Bank in Altoona, Pennsylvania was now as M&T Bank.
M&T, right.
So M&T purchased what was then Midstate Bank. And as a guy in high school, I was my senior year, I worked second shift in the computer room, in the operations. And when I graduated, I went full time with them. They sent me to Penn State. I got my computer science degree from Penn State.
Very cool. So you were going to Penn State while also working for the bank.
While also working for the bank.
Very cool. I love that.
My first few years, and again, before we started this, I started to tell you that one of my jobs was to kind of keep an eye on what we called then the ATMs or the
Mac machines, money access center, right?
We had 12 of those in and around
a whole network going on there.
Blair County back in 1982, I think this was.
Oh my goodness!
And back then, if you remember, you could only get maybe $50 out of the Mac machine, and or $100 because they weren't always online either. So some of them, were online, so they could actually check your account back then and how much money you had.
We back up. So sometimes it would just dispense money, not really knowing if you had the money.
If it was offline, you had a limit. And so what happens is when those machines went down, it would relay a message to our computer room. We had a security guard that walked through the computer room, and if any of those machines
did it come out on ticker tape?
It was actually it was on an old
dot matrix printer,
black and white screen that had open or close for all 12 of them.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And if any of them said close, I would get a page on my pager, and here, as a teenager, as a guy just out of high school, and doing things that normal teenagers do on Friday nights and over the weekends, because that's when you were on call.
Okay.
You had to be ready at any time to go down to the operations center, check it out. If you couldn't fix it, you called IBM. IBM went out and cleared the jam or whatever was wrong with the machine.
It's full of cash.
Yeah, exactly. It was so that was really one of my first real jobs as into IT.
That's a lot of responsibility if you think about it.
For an 18-year-old, yeah, right. And then all the while, again, wanting to be a software developer. That was okay. So in the back of your head, you wanted to develop software. So I became a developer for Midstate Bank and became pretty good, a COBOL CICS developer back then. Got my degree from Penn State. Got hired by a company in State College, manufacturing company, worked my way into management there. And actually at 29 years old, I was managing all of our software developers and systems analysts. Wow. So I had that side of our
I'm business. Impressed. That's just so cool. I love this. I mean, you've been tech since day one.
Everybody that worked for me was older than me.
How was that?
It was kind of crazy.
I can imagine.
But again, and I met a guy that we would bring in contractors from, and he wanted to move his business, expand his business just from not being in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. He wanted to move into the Altoona State College market. Asked me if I wanted to run it for him, and that's how I got into the consulting business. I opened an office in Altoona for a company called Solution Technologies back then. Mm-hmm. We did basically what PS Solutions does today. We did IT staffing, but mostly on site at the time. We didn't have remote workers, and we didn't have lot of software development going on in our shop. It was more on site.
Get the person, throw them on site there to do the
staff augmentation was what it was. And then I opened the office here in Pittsburgh at Gateway Center for the same company. So we had about 40 to 50 employees in Western Pennsylvania, including Altoona, Pittsburgh area, when they sold that company. And so then a few years later, Wayne Hippo, my business partner, and I had an idea that, hey, let's start this business, and PS Solutions came about. And
I love it. And that was 15 years ago.
That was 15 years ago.
You've had a very colorful career to date, and I'm sensing you've had to have a lot of fun while you're at it too. I can tell this is something that is your passion, and you'd be doing this no matter what.
Yeah, it has been. I mean, even as I get older, it's something that I can't imagine not working at. So,
I love it. I get excited when I talk to folks when they're just doing what they love, and best of all is what you love is helping a lot of people. You're solving some pretty tough problems out there.
Yeah, one of the things that we've been able to do is we've kept everything here in the United States. We've kept all of our software developers. We hire. We are 99% employees. We will sub just the odd skill set when we don't have it on staff. You
come across something where it's like, whoa, where do you find that type of talent?
Yeah, exactly. But we're pretty much 99% employees. We're all in the United States. We never, ever, and won't ever send anything offshore.
That's interesting because I know there was a huge trend for the longest time to do that because you could save the money and blah, blah, blah.
Well, I'll tell you a story. One of our first big projects back in, I'd say this was probably in about 2 or 3 years into our business.
Yeah.
A husband of a woman who worked for me way back when I was with Solution Technologies had called and said, hey, I understand you guys have a software development company, and we just sent our entire rewrite off to a firm in India, and we're very unhappy. There's actually a lawsuit going on. We've spent millions of dollars, and we just want this thing to work. And so we took a look at the code. The code was all garbage, and we said, look, this is a rewrite. And so we put 7 or 8 people on it, and in a year and a half, we had everything written for them, and they were very happy.
Righted the ship
for them with people who were here in the United States.
Pulling the bacon out of the fire.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my goodness.
That's when we said, we'll never send anything offshore.
Yeah, at that point, you realize it's not worth the risks. I know people have had success with that, but at the same time, there are its risks.
Yes.
And that person, you saw the bad side of it and realized that's not the route that you're going to take that.
Correct. So, I mean, that's one of our success stories.
Well, I've also found it interesting. I mean, there's been this reshoring trend that we've been seeing a lot of because I think people have seen a lot of that, and people are realizing that some of the savings aren't really savings, and that keeping things local makes it actually a little bit easier. Like you're not gaining anything by having extra time zones to work across or something like that.
Exactly. One of the things that we found too is being in Altoona, the cost of living in Altoona and that's where our largest development center is. So we have most of our people are in Altoona.
Very cool. How many folks do you have in Altoona working?
It's over 20. It's 20,
awesome.
22 people, I think, in our development center there.
Very cool.
We have a total of 42 people now, I believe, that work for the company. We're not big, but we have
42 people. I'm always impressed you can get 42 people rowing the boat in the same direction.
Well, and we tend to keep our folks too. They enjoy working for us. We treat our folks well. We do continuing education, lunch and learns. In Altoona, we have a really kind of a cool office. We have a ping pong table in there.
There you go.
Whenever COVID hit, remember back when COVID hit?
Oh yeah,
everybody remembers.
I couldn't forget
when everyone had to go work from home. I know our employees hated it because they liked being in Altoona. They hated it because they liked being together.
Yeah, there's nothing to it.
And there was the collaboration that goes on. Yes, you can do it on Teams and Zoom.
Got to be in person,
but in person,
yes, sir.
It just seemed to work better especially with a young group, in their 20s and 30s, pretty much. Software developers, today
we're social beings, man.
Yeah, they
Simple
really
as
are.
That.
So the day that we were allowed, the day that the governor said you can go back to your offices, everybody was back in. In the larger area like Pittsburgh and even in Wilmington a little bit, Wilmington, North Carolina, where we have our other office, not so much. It was like, and I believe it has to do with, traffic situations. In Altoona, you can get from one end of the town to the other in less than 15 minutes.
Absolutely.
Pittsburgh, if you live, here, in Robinson Township, getting to our office in Forest Hills is,
it's paying the butt.
It's a half hour, 40
exactly.
minutes.
I think that's a great point that you make, because it is very true. And I guess you're really fortunate to have a big development center, like, in a more rural community like Altoona. So then it does create the fact that, like, it's no big deal with traffic. So we like going to work.
And some of the people that, in our office, some of the team leads that we have worked with me in the past. So, they've been with me for some. The one team lead has been with me since the year 2000. We
That's saying together. Something.
And I have a senior developer that's been with me since 1995.
Whoa! Oh my! Okay, we're talking 30 years, man.
It's rare to see that they've hung around and haven't taken that lure that you get to say, hey, I can stay at home and work for a company in Chicago or something.
Totally. So tell me about, who are some of what's like a typical customer for PS Solutions? I'm curious if someone's listening right now and they wonder, like, I need help. Like, am I too small, too big for a PS Solutions?
Nobody's too small.
Okay.
I'll tell you, we've helped a lot of startups.
I love hearing that.
Our startups, we'll do an MVP for them. We had one of our startups came back and said, I can't believe, I never believed I would see my vision come to life. And you guys did this for us.
That's got to be a really good feeling, knowing that you helped someone kind of build their dream, that they had this idea, they couldn't build it, but they need the technical chops of you to do it, and you're able to do it for them, and they're like stoked, and you're like, yeah, that's what we do.
Right. And we did it within their price constraints, and we gave them what they needed to get their product started. Once they prove that concept, then, a great example would be the same person came back and said, okay, now I need to expand this. Mm-hmm. And so then we help them grow. But we work with companies large and small, from the staff augmentation business that we do, companies that need additional staff. We have a recruiting and sales team that will find the right person for those companies, and they will work with you under your direction. Or if like I said, if somebody needs a system rewritten that might be an old system,
right? We
run into old PHP systems. We run into old Visual Basic systems.
Whoa, back up Visual Basic. My goodness.
Yeah, that just need rewritten into a modern, more secure language, because security is a big thing these days. And if you're phased out of the release you're on, then we're doing one right now where it's an old PHP system that wouldn't have any security updates after October. So they came to us and said, hey, can you rewrite this? We're rewriting it in Microsoft.NET for them. And it's a pretty large system. So, we'll have 3 or 4 developers on it, and we'll get it done for them in about 6 months' time, and off they go.
I like it, man. I like it.
One of our big things that we really love, though, is some of the opportunities to work with some more meaningful projects, such as suicide prevention.
Interesting. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah.
What's up with that?
In Blair County, our social services director called me one day and said, hey, Joe, I have an idea. Our first responders, they carry around a card, and on the card is the Columbia Protocol, which is a series of 6 to 8 questions that you ask somebody who is at risk. And then depending on the answers, it tells you what to do with them, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's just a front and back card that they were carrying. He said, I have this idea of building an app. And that way the app can be out not just to first responders and people who know, the medical community and things like that, but for anybody to use.
I like that. I like where this is going. Okay, keep it.
So we took the idea, and I said, let me talk to a couple of my team leads here and see what we can do with it. And we went back, and I knew he only had so much money at the county level to work with.
Yeah.
We created it. We put it out there, and we worked with Columbia University, who created the protocol. And today, the state of Pennsylvania. And we did this for Blair County to start with, in the Altoona area. State of Pennsylvania caught wind of it. We now have what happens is whenever you get the response back, you get in Blair County, you get the local crisis center to call if you're at high risk, if you're medium risk, and so on. It just gives you the different areas and the local resources to call. On the cards, it was just the national, 911. Now it's 988 to call if you have a risk. So what we did then was got a call from the director of human services at the state of Pennsylvania. He said, "Hey, I want this for the whole state." And
No
I want
way.
you to be able to.
How cool is that?
I want the local crisis centers to be able to do this. And I also want some demographic information if people are willing to put in demographic information into the app so that we can tell who's using the app.
Yeah, you're grabbing data at that point. You can start.
So now we're grabbing data. We're doing reporting. And then the person who created this and her team, Dr. Kelly Posner from Columbia, called and said, "We want to do this all over the country."
No way.
So we just actually today.
As you can see, Joe's a really cool guy. So much fun being able to interview him and so many other men and women just like him who have a pure and complete passion for all things technology and entrepreneurship. So once again, if you go to pssolutions.net, you can learn all about PS Solutions. And if you go to pghtech.org, you can learn all about the Pittsburgh Technology Council and how we love helping our tech companies succeed. This has been Jonathan Kirsting, once again, with the Pittsburgh Technology Council. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and here's to an awesome week ahead. Thanks for geeking out with us on TechVibe Radio. Tune in next Sunday for more tech and innovation stories right here from Pittsburgh. TechVibe is brought to you by Compunetics at Compunetics.com, Chorus Call at ChorusCall.com, Highmark at Highmark.com, Huntington Bank at Huntington.com, Kindling at TheKindlingAgency.com, PNC Bank at PNC.com, and Savior at Savior.com. And we're always coming at you from the Huntington Bank Studios.